let's begin at 448. And we have Jody, Matt, Larry's here, Tom's on the way, and hopefully Peter's on the way. Shortly. Did you look at the minutes?
I did. I have no complaints.
All right, so for the minutes, I guess I could, the majority, so all in favor? There you go. Yeah, we have a lot to do, but it's kind of a buffet. You can kind of pick and choose what you want to discuss tonight.
Well, actually, I'm going to make a recommendation that the policies that we have here, since they are mostly, how do I want to put it, policies for how to do things for the people. They've been reviewed by a lawyer, they've been reviewed by the staff, and actually reviewed by us. I only saw minor little problems that really aren't pertinent one way or the other. And as far as I can see, why can't we just blanket? Oh, geez. Hi, boss.
Right.
Why can't we just blanket approve and get them out right here?
I only have a couple of small potential changes, but I could bring those to the full board as well.
What do you-
And we're done.
I'm here.
It would save so much time.
We don't need to go through mine. I mean, they're pretty much non-controversial comments.
Yeah, and I know Pete has got a
But
couple
otherwise,
there.
it'll fine, yeah.
He told me that he had a couple typos that were there. that he-
Well, we're gonna typo it, and it may not even be the one we're doing tonight.
The code of ethics revisions.
Yeah.
And
So, would you like to, are you moving that we forward these documents?
I'll make a
As
motion.
drafted.
I move that we move the,
Oh, I'm sorry. That's fine.
how do I wanna do that so we get them all in?
We forward, the code of ethics drafts, sample policies.
I move that we forward the sample the sample document for the BCA to the full board.
So that includes policies 1 through 17 on our agenda for tonight.
Yep.
Second,
Okay.
Now we can discuss it.
Oh, yeah, okay, I get it. My mind is on this. I'm just looking for, yes.
Because, like I said, I had a few things here that were just nothing to discuss, it's just questions if we came up with.
Right.
And it's stuff that we're already doing, that's why I couldn't see wasting our time on
I had a very few small comments, but they're not worth
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a,
spending time tonight.
That sample document really simplified what the other one did. And I thought it was perfect.
Right.
I'm sure I marked every damn one of them. You know, I can't find. I mean, it was grammatical more than.
Right, exactly.
Well, that's what mine were, is the basic content that was there was perfect.
Okay, here I got page 16.
Okay,
Okay, see it says GBEAA. Okay, this policy of the school district to respect the privacy and or confidentiality of all students and staff within the district, period. The policy district, that personally identifiable information, I think it's supposed to say, it says here, it is the policy district. I think it's supposed to say it is the policy of the district,
I agree.
right? So it's grammatical,
point
it's
to
not
where you're looking, so I can change that. to-
right here, see. It is the policy district
Oh, I
that,
see, yeah, I see,
okay?
okay.
So I mean, like I say, it doesn't change any
No,
intents, it doesn't do anything.
Good catch.
I just wrote down okay with all the ones that I looked at. Okay, now, on page 10. And again, this is minutia, but the heading, will strive to improve public education by striving. See, we'll strive to improve public education by striving to adhere. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. But as a
Yeah, I
bit of a
noticed
junior
that too.
writer here, I'm wondering if we wanna put adhering to or some other word, I really don't care.
So you're
But
on
we're gonna
page
strive to
2.
try to strive. How about, you could even take the first strive out, we'll improve public education by striving
I
to
think that's the
adhere.
best way to do that.
Whatever.
You know,
Yeah.
your 10 is
We'll
different.
strive to improve public education by striving to.
So what,
Well, I'm just wanting, we'll improve public education by striving
no, I
to.
understand, I'm
You
just
know,
trying to find out.
whatever
where
you
are.
want.
Okay, that's on page 9 of ours.
Oh, I see it.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. Further down,
So we need to strike,
The
if you
first
want, I mean, it's.
I think that's an ideal way to do it.
so you wanna strike the second striving.
I was thinking of taking out the first striving.
Oh,
To
okay.
improve public education by striving to adhere.
Okay, so I will improve and strike strive to. Yep. thank you.
Now, number 7 on that page. Recognizing that as a general principle, the district and its students benefits when the board, students benefit when the board decisions, which have been made following, it says consideration of all sides. Well, how do you consider all sides? I mean, again, it's, you know, I was gonna say following consideration and following discussion and consideration. And just take out from all sides. I mean, I don't care one way or the other, but. Like,
Well, I agree with you, because you're not gonna always hear
all sides, I mean,
So replace consideration of all sides with discussion.
with discussion, comma,
That's fine.
consideration,
Okay, well, that's great.
right? So we're gonna discuss it, then we're gonna consider it, or, you know. Number 9. Recognize that individual board members are without authority to act relative to school district business, and that I may not individually vote, I think, and that may not, and that I may not. This looks like it was taken by something somebody signed.
Well, actually, mine's different than yours.
Well, see, okay, well,
Recognize that individual board members are without authority to act relative to school district business. And that I may not individually commit the board to any action except as specifically designated.
well, you wanna keep the I in there, that's the question I had. Because this is a policy, and may not, and I may not. I don't care, I mean, you see, it's a minutia thing,
I think the
So-
I should come out.
you know, and that,
I would
and
strike
that,
that and I.
that and I, yeah, and may not, they're telling the board, this is the policy, you may not do this.
Okay,
I think that was, like I say, it was. Now, I don't know if you wanna care about this, but on page 29 for me, this has to do with interpersonal relationships.
Oh, that one there, I kind of wondered about that one.
These core principles.
give me the policy letter.
It's page 3, man, of your agenda.
BCA, I think it is.
Oh,
BCA, so we're on Code of Ethics, Pete?
Yeah, core principles, I'm that, yeah, core
We're actually
core
planning to
principles.
strike that entire policy and replace it with
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah,
fine,
that's
the
what-
one on
that's
page
fine,
9.
you know,
Yeah.
because the thing that here is
yeah, it was,
interpret, you know, and I hate to bring up what's going on now with the federal government, but everybody's interpreting, based on my interpretation, I think the president was wrong, based on my and when you put in interpret, you open up, is
It's
the
a
cup
can of
half
worms.
empty or is it half full? Well, you know,
that's why Pam and I were just talking before you came in. We think this sample document is a better document.
yep, I got no problem with that.
And we moved that right out of the picture.
Okay, so that's pretty much what I've been doing for the last, along with superintendent evaluations. thought I was back in school again with all my calculations
Is
that I
that-
had to do.
Actually, I can't see any reason why we need to discuss any further. You, anybody else?
BCA board member ethics, just adopting the NHSBA sample document.
Yes,
I would advise the board that that's probably the way to go, because I would assume that
legal,
there's background to the way they create those, and it's, honestly, that wouldn't be a bad one to put on like an annual review cycle, just to make sure it's never updated, because it could get you into some trouble.
I agree. And that's why I did not like the first one, there's steps that could lead to problems.
Some of our policies were developed and evolved over many years and not necessarily checked against law.
That's right.
And that's what we're finding, and by the way, that's not unusual. My last job, I did the same kind of like massive review, and it yielded a similar result, which is that policies were evolving based on personal perspectives, not the legal requirements of the school board. I need to take this call, I'm sorry, someone came up right before this interview.
So I've got a couple quick ones, if I could go through them with you now. I know Joe's been waiting. I'm on GBEA staff ethics, which GBEA, and mine's page 14, but I'm not sure what page yours would be on. Would be correct
Okay,
for
mine's
that?
14.
Okay.
So yours is probably,
GBA, well, I printed it out, I'm not sure where it is also. So, under adoption and incorporation, a part A of that policy, they refer to a code of ethics for New Hampshire educators. I think they mean code of conduct, they just have ethics in there and it should be conduct,
I think,
because that's what the legal reference talks about, code of conduct.
I think we should change that.
So, to be consistent, there's 2 ethics listed, I'm gonna change those to conduct, is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, and above that, on the page before, GBE staff rights and responsibilities. Our current policy and the HSBA's example policy are almost identical. It's GBE employee rights and, hold on a second, where am I?
No, that's-
GBE staff rights and responsibilities.
Yep.
We have a different title for that one, but it looks like they're pretty much the same. I'm on page 12 and 13.
Yep.
I think we should adopt the NHSBA's version,
I
it's a
agree
little
with
more
you.
recent,
I
it's a
agree.
little cleaner, but they're so similar that it's really a matter of taste.
It's saying the same thing in fewer
Right.
words, is the way I look
So
at
you
it.
want to advise we move on the more recent one?
I would do, yes, I do agree with that,
It's more recent by a
Yeah.
month, okay.
this one here.
I
Two
got a
pages.
problem along with that one.
So let's go ahead and say we offer to recommend adopting the school board associations. And
Yep.
then on page, I'm so sorry, then on page,
Mine's the same as yours.
oh, it's GBEBB. Which is on page. Employee-student relations on page 18. So ours is more recent than the school board associations. So ours is actually more current, is revisited more current recently. On page 19, which is the second page on that policy, GBEBB, part 10, staff members shall not attempt to counsel, assess, diagnose, or treat a student's personal problem. Do you see where I am?
I am.
At the end, it says refer the student to the appropriate individual. Shouldn't it be to the building administrator for appropriate
Well,
individual?
it actually comes in somewhere else, it said that the staff member should not be
Counsel.
referring the student to or associate the student.
Right.
There was something there that said that they shouldn't be doing that, and I do agree with what you're saying.
Well, it seems to me they should just refer the student to the building administrator or the building principal. Or, and
Or
then,
the appropriate
The
supervisor.
appropriate, well, not even, well, yes and no. I had a kid come in one time and say, I think I'm pregnant. So what did I do? I didn't go to building administrator, I went to this nurse with my first year here.
Well, that's
It was
what I'm
like,
saying.
what do I do? You know, and she took care of it for me.
Yeah.
So to say you've gotta go to an administrator, if the administrator gets a little miffed about it, they could jam you up and say, you're supposed to go by me, you know? So I think maybe appropriate, and it'll be the judgment call on the teacher. Remember, I wasn't gonna go to the principal with this, I didn't say truth, I didn't know what the hell to do. So I went to Helen Richards for Sunday matter.
yeah,
So how do we, what word would we use there to cover that? I think we all agree.
Appropriate individual. I mean, if it was a guidance thing,
You'd want-
you wouldn't necessarily go to the principal, you'd go in, I've gone into guidance many times and said, hey,
or
guidance,
it could be the school nurse. for
could be the
example.
school nurse, could be, you know, it might be a kid coming to you about a sports thing and say, hey, well, you know, why don't we go talk?
Okay, so let's not make my suggested change, let's just skip that one. And then down below, number 13, staff members are strongly discouraged from socializing with students outside school on social networking websites and email. I think it should be prohibited, not strongly discouraged.
Instead of prohibited, I shall not.
Shall not's fine, I'm just
You
saying,
know what I mean?
there are plenty of platforms students can use on school time in the district to communicate
You
with
need to
teachers.
stay away from,
They don't have to
basically
be
stay
on
away from the
Facebook
students.
or anything else.
Basically stay away from the students. If you wanna say prohibited, that's fine, but you know, shall not to me.
Okay.
Well, you said it was, I was prohibited, but that didn't mean I couldn't do it.
Shall
Shall
not.
not, don't do it.
Legally, shall not is a.
Stronger.
Now means must, I know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
don't ask me how I know that. So staff members shall not socialize with students outside of school, and I changed it to social media instead of.
Okay, this is a
networking.
social media thing, right?
Right, social
Okay,
media
because if you're at a ball
websites.
game and the kid comes up and talks to you, you're socializing.
So, does that sound okay to you?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
But
what-
again, it's social media, stay away from social media.
Well, there are plenty of ways to communicate with a teacher using district on online.
thing I worry
resources. They
about-
don't need to go outside and start a. chat
Social
room.
media is like road rage, stuff you will do behind the wheel of your car because you think you have some kind of protection that you would never do face to face with someone.
Let me see if I have any, okay, there. That
Do you
one's
wanna add the
fine.
word personal before email?
Because it says outside of school, I figured that meant outside emails.
Well,
So-
don't, you never wanna be in an I figure situation. Because how, again, it's open for interpretation, how you figure versus I figure. Is that cup half empty or half full? Well, I think, so I think be more definitive would probably be best.
So I'll add personal emails, okay, as opposed to work emails. Let me see, I'm almost done, thank you. GBEBD, employee use of social media. I think we should table that one because the school board association is gonna revise it in the spring.
Oh, sure.
And that's the internet use, that's kind of a big mess right now.
Oh, yes.
So let's table that one, everything else we can forward. KH, public solicitations in schools, which is for me on page.
What's that, I'm sorry, I missed that.
KH, public solicitations in schools. I have page 24.
Okay,
Well, that's, you can do that with permission.
Right.
Because they do that all the time, selling candy bars and fundraising
No,
and,
there are
you know.
exceptions, but as a general policy, there will be no solicitation within the schools, and I added, or on school district web pages.
Okay, yeah,
So
yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
you
yeah,
have
that's-
things
yeah, because
posted,
that was
No.
not, they never thought of that stuff when they wrote those
Right.
things.
so I added that, so that would be okay, and then finally,
Brendan, can I-
the next page.
Can I stop you right there?
Sure.
So you're saying that if we have, a summer camp program, we can't put that on the? on
No,
the
you
district-
need permission, you go further on that says without permission of.
Okay,
Well, for
It's like the candy bars they sell all the time in your fundraisers,
yes.
right? You can't do it unless you get permission.
Oh, okay.
last year, we had an ad for a local business, which was included in one of the newsletters, and I asked that we not do that, because was kind of playing favorites with one local business versus others.
Mhm.
It wasn't a nonprofit activity or something like that, and I just asked if
Yeah.
we could refrain from having.
Well, I was worried about, limiting our power to,
Oh, no,
Read the rest of it, Dan. Read it.
no, that's fine,
any request for the exception,
But they're gonna say in there, without,
for the exception to this rule must be submitted in writing to the school board or its agents, superintendent and or principal at least 30 days prior to the implementation of the requested activity. School board reserves the right to grant exceptions.
Do we want a school board or do we want to use the superintendent for that?
I tell you the truth, I thought that said administration, I must be thinking of a different policy. Because there's any number of policies that say you can't do it unless you get permission.
Well, administration would be good. Because the principals take care of their own building.
Yeah.
What do you think?
We could designate the superintendent to
Well,
grant
you
exceptions.
you could start the whole
Superintendent
policy
or-
off with something like, unless approved by, you know, the administration, da-da-da-da-da-da is prohibited, or something of that nature, you know what I mean? So that way, right up front, they know you gotta get permission. They don't have to read any further, I wanna have a candy drive.
Mhm.
Right up front, you know, gotta get the permission. I mean, all of these things like these policies is my saying, but it's never a problem until there's a problem. No, that's never gonna happen.
So I changed it to, the school board reserves the right to give the superintendent authority to grant exceptions. How's that?
Well, okay, now we're into the weeds, and we don't have to give the superintendent the right to grant exceptions. The
We do not.
superintendent runs the school. How about just the superintendent has the right? The superintendent or his designee has the right to approve.
I would think that you would wanna give the superintendent powers and then take it away if that individual is not acting in your best interest.
Well, we can always take it away.
Cause you really wanna have, like, I think in your policies, an element of trust
Yeah.
until that trust is broken.
Right. And I don't think if a principal goes to the superintendent and says, we're gonna have a candy drive, the superintendent's gonna have to say, well, let's discuss this. Hey, you just do it, whatever you. Yeah, it's your building, you're the, well, you know how I am when you at meetings, right?
Yeah.
All right, Matt, whatever you, well.
So the superintendent has authority to grant exceptions,
Or his
Period.
designee?
or his designee.
That means that he still knows what's going on.
Yeah, that's the main thing, he needs, yeah.
Because he might give the right to the principals, but not the
Sure.
assistant principals.
Right. And then last, on page 25, advertising in schools, again, I added district web pages and email to the first
Yeah,
sentence.
Yeah,
And that's all I did for that one. So, thank you so much. We'll send these to the school board,
yeah.
all right?
I think we did.
Hey, we got something done tonight, excellent.
Hey, wait a minute, something's wrong, we're not arguing with each other, wait a minute,
We've only been
So-
in here less than half an hour.
well, they've got a little
I know.
thing to do.
So, we do have some priority, just so everyone is
Oh,
aware.
just when you
of this.
said we were done, we're not done, all right.
Under old business, we have some priority policies that were due last fall, that, in the I's section, having to do with early graduation and distance education. So we still need to turn to those evaluation requirements for children with specific learning disabilities.
Okay,
That
can
is not linked to
Can
the
we
manual.
hold that for 1 second? Jody and Matt, how long are you gonna take?
For what?
Well, you were gonna get something on, well, we got an email.
I was just here to answer questions based off of these priorities.
Oh, okay, the way I interpreted it, you had something to give us.
No, I don't think
Oh,
that or I
okay,
would present.
beautiful.
No, we're just here to
Is
have,
that how you got it?
We were
The
just-
first time I got it, Tom just told me that they were here just to answer questions.
Oh, okay,
If you
okay.
had any, if not, they were gonna leave us.
Yeah, the way the email, the way I interpreted it, Matt and Jody will be there too, or I invited them, so I assumed you had something to tell us.
No, we're just
No,
here to offer
oh, okay,
feedback.
you know,
No, I'll tell you, we're happy to be here.
Well,
No, you're
I
not.
did give you the
I'm not happy to be
agenda,
here.
and as you can see, I keep adding things that are tabled over time. And
Yep.
some of these have been tabled for months, when something comes up that we have to deal with. So if you see anything on this old business list, that you would be interested in helping with, we still need to do some revisions that might be relevant to your duties.
Can we get copies of these sent back to us and do it next?
I was gonna say, I don't have a
Well,
copy of
these
anything.
These are revisions that I still need to get from Bob Dawson,
Oh,
Assistant Principal Dawson.
oh, so we don't even have them then?
No, we do
Okay.
not, but I put them on here because some of them are priority policies, that
Yeah.
means mandated.
Why don't you send them an email and,
Okay,
that'll be the first priority in the next meeting.
right,
Actually, when you send the email, don't sign it as yourself, send it as the policy committee.
okay,
Yeah, yeah.
That way then it's all of us.
I would say, hi, Bob, just reaching out to you, the policy committee would like to go over the following things first at the
Right.
next meeting. You know,
okay, I'll remind him. And also, for Mr. Angel, we have the Student Activities Fund Management Policy, JJF, which has been waiting for a revised draft.
from who?
Michelle Croteau was working on this before, she's.
Well, where is it, Matt?
And I know it's a long policy, has to do with student activities funds,
I've actually gone through it in great detail with the staff.
yeah.
I feel really good about it, except for a couple tweaks, and I do have to say that it's one of the stronger student activity policies I've seen.
Okay,
Why don't
And
you send it to us and we'll put that on the list for next time.
yeah,
All right, get that one behind.
I'll do some review on that. And
I remember Michelle telling me that she was specifically gonna give it to you with a high priority sticker on it.
oh, for me?
Yeah, so obviously you fell down.
Yeah, okay. I do like the policy, the way it is.
oh, great, so I'll ping you an email about that. And
Yeah.
then also the DAF, Federal Grant Funds Policy. There might be policies we have that reference federal grants, and they'll have to have that as a related policy, because we have a new DAF. So we have to go through all the fiscal financial policies and
Mhm.
see where they mention grants, use of grants, and even if it's non-federal grants, we should probably note, if it's federal grants, see
Yes.
DAF.
Yeah.
I can do that if you want me to, I mean, I can go through the policies.
Hell of an idea.
I need to go through the
No,
policies.
you're gonna be chair of policies. so
it's-
keep-
Okay.
Keep laughing.
I mean, after
I'm
tonight,
just trying to help you out here, man.
well, no,
That was one of my,
what, the thing I've been working on for the last 3 weeks is getting presented tonight, so,
Okay, I knew you were gonna kinda be busy, so I
I
knew that.
understand.
Yeah.
I'm not bugging you, cause I know you've been extremely busy.
Can we go back to the IHBAA?
Yeah.
So the evaluation requirements for children with specific learning disabilities. So the one that the New Hampshire School Board Association has is from 2016. The one we have is from 2014. The one that they recommend is essentially like 2 lines long, and it basically refers back to the procedural safeguards that the New Hampshire DOE puts out. I think we should just basically accept the New Hampshire School Board Association sample language, and remove it, because there were changes. There were changes to the New Hampshire Special Education procedures, and rules in April of 2017. So there's things that always get changed anyway. So one of the reasons why they thought that we should just make it as vague as possible is because you're never gonna be able to keep up your policy with all the changes and laws that happen on a regular
And
basis.
people would be misled if they read the manual when it's actually, the law's been changed, so, yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I would say that one should be easy to move forward.
Okay, thank you.
I'm looking at the one right now and there's nothing I would change. I mean, it literally says, the district will ensure that all evaluation requirements for children with learning disabilities are evaluated consistent with applicable state and federal laws and regulations. All staff, students, parents, and other interested persons are directed to the New Hampshire Department of Education Special Education Policies and Procedurals Manual, and that's it. And that's linked right on the student service website.
So we'll add that to the list for the school board. Anything else you see here? I guess most of this is for Bob Dawson, pupil safety, bullying, he's been working on that one. It's not done yet.
I thought we did the sexual harassment one, no?
We talked about, but I think there was
That's
other
one
stuff.
we tabled, I'm not sure why.
There was
I know,
something-
cause there's some under section A, Foundations and Basic Commitment,
Right.
which are very similar to the student ones. And the A's got done,
2 years ago.
I was gonna say, they've been updated, I'm just going to the bottom of it.
I'll check on that.
They were done in December 19, 2018. And those are essentially the same as the J's, or they should be. I mean, ultimately, we've been advised by, can't remember the attorney, it might have been Phillips, but that we don't need to duplicate all the policies and all the sections for those. Because basically your sexual harassment is gonna be the same for staff, students, all employees.
Right. Okay, let me check. I know one of these was tabled. It might have just been the form, the report form, and not the policy.
Wasn't that because that they were doing some review work or something on that? From the NHB?
I did table one or both of these, but I'll check my notes.
They
And
might
I
have.
will ask-
Something is just back in the back.
No, we did table a few of the J's, but we've got most of them.
The J's haven't been updated
Right.
on our website.
This was something that's been kind of tabled forever, so, just reminding. I'll ask, Bob Dawson about that one. And like I said, there are some policies that are in need of attention. This was from last summer, this past summer. These are the priority ones we were supposed to, update, and I put in green when we had updated those. So you can see that ours were updated just before or a year before they hit us with revised policies, so we have to revise them again. We just did them in May 2019, and this summer, apparently, they have made some revisions to these policies.
Can
There's no rest for the
you
wicked,
send,
Ellen
could
calls
you,
it.
I'm gonna suggest that that's what we do at the next meeting. Get
Okay,
them behind us. Could you send me an email with what the policy numbers are, so I can have Phyllis run them off for me and make sure Larry and I get copies?
sure,
And I like to get them because I try to steal time sometimes. It's like when you came into my work, I stole some time to make those corrections on the computer.
Yeah,
Well, I'm mixing and matching the school and the town, but you were there, so, you know, and I wouldn't have been able to do any work except that you showed me how stupid I was with the computer.
I didn't say as to.
That's why I have a wife at home, right?
Yeah.
I have an app, MCB, Maria Collins brought me. And she'll even tell me, you didn't tell me that. I know, because you'd forget it anyway. I hate computers, I truly do.
so I'll check on these and I'll.
Yeah, if you just send me which ones they are, and then we'll look them up and we'll, have them for the next meeting.
The JFABD one.
Yeah.
That one I did take a look at from the New Hampshire School Board Association. They have an updated one. We should adopt it because it does match the new language.
Okay, put that one in there too.
And there's actually a new one that then links to that. So McKinney-Vento and foster care used to be kind of merged into one law. They got separated out into two laws. We don't currently have a foster care policy,
Really?
but the New Hampshire School Board, because ours is embedded within the McKinney-Vento homeless one. So the School Board Association recently, what they did is they made two different policies, one for McKinney-Vento and one for foster care. I've looked them both over. They're both up to date with the current law, although that always changes. But I would say you can move those forward as well
Okay,
And eliminate the one we have?
and eliminate the one we have.
Yeah, okay.
The one we have is no longer current. It's minor changes, but
Well, we'll just take theirs, and whatever number we have, and we'll just
Yep.
take theirs and call that number.
What about JLF?
I didn't take a look at that one. That's something that each school usually really focuses on, reporting child abuse and neglect. I can certainly look at it, I would just want some more time to look at it.
Okay,
No,
great.
that's fine. I just wanna clean up this minutia that we've been having on the table for a while.
No, this is great, we can at least do some of these,
You know.
and the others I'll talk to Mr. Dawson about.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Sure.
I'll push across the DAF and then I'll look at all the financial policies.
Okay, great.
If we can talk to Pam and she wants to put them on the agenda, fine. I just like to get them, like, if I can get them next week so that.
Yep.
You know,
So new business, GDB, non-union support staff, wages and benefits. Jody, I think that we don't need you to be here any longer unless you would like to stay. Cause this one is staff wages and the next section is, Tom mentioned that section K would be something we should start looking at, but he didn't give me any details or anything.
okay, all right.
So I had that down
So,
on new
so
business.
non-union, we probably want Tom to be here on that.
That might be helpful. Is he coming back?
He's on the phone, God knows, something went up somewhere probably.
I have an idea of what it is.
I do too, because I
And-
saw
but
something
it-
you delivered, but,
Let's just say he could be back right now or never.
well, we've only got 35 minutes.
Well, let me just show you some of the questions that Jamie came up with,
Who came up with it?
Jamie Fitzpatrick, during our, the personnel committee looked at this policy first, just to have some reactions for the policy committee, and we didn't recommend any revisions, we just had questions, about the policy revisions.
I would have to have the policies in front of me to be able to.
It's in your agenda packet. Do you
I
want-
think, annually means school year,
Yes, it does.
okay?
Well, this is the one that I had problems with.
I don't think we can answer number two. How many sick days are allowed in average on private and public sector? I don't know. I know when I was in the police department, we got 15 days.
So did you have a chance to look at this, Pete, or do you want me to table it for tonight?
Well, no, well, we can look at, I'm just looking at the questions, see if we can even answer them,
Right.
okay? The first one we can answer, the second one, you know, I don't,
Well, for one thing, you're talking government to public.
well,
You know,
not
it's
only
like-
that, but these are negotiated items.
That's
No,
So
it's
it-
not,
No,
it's
not for this
non-union.
one.
Huh?
These are non-union. These are non-negotiated.
Great.
Yes, but
It's
you
great.
can't, okay, unless you really wanna create problems, you better have the non-union people
Pretty close.
pretty parallel to the union people,
Oh, I agree.
okay? So if you give 13 days, to the professional staff, let's call it, you darn well better come close to that, to support staff and non-union,
Well, I'm not arguing with this.
you know?
I've been in that argument.
Okay.
Well, the one that I had problems with was the vacation days. The change that they were requesting was instead of 90 days, at 90 days you get 2 weeks. I have never
Yeah, I've never
seen,
seen that, no.
I think that should be, no. At the most you would get after 6 months is 1 week.
And you've gotta put the week in.
Yep.
You know, so I've always looked at it, in effect, the first year,
You don't get.
you don't get any vacation. And then, let's say you were hired on January 2nd. January 1st, you have 2 weeks, because you've already accrued them. Was it a day and a quarter, a month, or something like that, or?
It depends upon.
On 0.75 days per month.
I don't know.
I mean, it depends on, but that works out to be 10 days, I think, you know.
Well, every place that I worked except for the military was that you got 2 weeks after the first year up until the 5th.
Right, because you've accrued them.
And then after the 5th year, you got 3 weeks up until 15 years.
Yeah, and then you got 4
Then
weeks.
after that, you got 4 weeks, and that was essentially it.
Yeah, see, and the
The
police
military
department went up
gave
to
you
6
30
weeks.
days thing right now,
Mm,
because in case you're going overseas for deployment, you may not be home for 2-3 years.
I have seen this, the way it was written in other places. I think it's more of a mix.
Well, but my wife worked for a company with an old Yankee company, you know, and I mean, they gave nothing. They gave $3,000 for medical insurance, cash, and you could buy your own. So therefore, you could choose which one you wanted. Where can you get medical insurance for $3,000? But they were like, but you can choose your own, you know, baloney. So to go into public and private, you're talking apples and oranges here. You know,
I do have to agree with you on that one, it's just, I would love to be able to do something like that, but I don't think,
it's like union and non-union shops. If you're a union shop, you know, they're, what do we hear today about medical insurance? You know, 180 million people aren't gonna have it, that they've negotiated over years to get whatever their medical insurance is. So these things have been negotiated, and in negotiations, it is quid pro quo. What a time we live in. I'm gonna give you this, you give me that. So
I can't say.
it's when you look back, you say, oh my God, but you're looking at 30 years of negotiations,
Mhm.
you know.
I'm not saying anything.
No,
I know, I'm in negotiations and I was
but what
gonna
I'm
say
saying
something.
is, you've got 10 sick days. So you go in and you say, can we have 11? Okay, we'll give you 11 if you give us this. But then when you look at the total thing 20 years later, my God, they got 15 sick days, and yeah, but what did they give up to get that? You can't look at the final product.
Pam, I think these questions.
I think
Well,
to answer
I
some,
understand what you're saying is that you wanna have some kind of parity between the CBA benefits and the non-union, but the fact is they are non-union. That's the whole point of having some
Yes, but do you
employees that are
want them to
non-union.
become union?
or,
Yes, and also, Mrs. Rooney argued that compared to other districts, this is a comparable offer. And if we don't match other districts. we're gonna lose
Absolutely, I
employees.
agree.
So that was
Yeah.
her argument
That
for
is the,
updating.
that is the thing. that we
But
have
see, he's got
to
private
back
and public
on.
sector here.
We are in competition with every SAU in the state.
Worse.
And if, also, you're right, but those are the SAUs that we can see what we're in competition with. And I don't care whether it's the superintendent, the janitor that's carrying out the trash, or the school nurse. If we're not in competition, they're gonna go where the money is.
We're also in
And I
competition.
did
Were
the
you-
same
I'm
thing.
sorry,
We're
Matt,
also
were
in
you-
competition of northern Massachusetts. My daughter in Lowell, she lives in Wyndham, 35 minutes away. She was her last graduating class that didn't have to have her master's, so she doesn't have a master's.
we have to be
Been here
careful.
23 years, special ed, making $97,000 a year.
What did you
And
think of the
you are
current
competing.
How are we gonna attract somebody from Wyndham to come to Sanborn instead of going to Lowell?
But that's the thing right there that so many people don't understand. We compete with Massachusetts
We do.
Right.
on all fronts.
From,
Well,
I
there's
would
another
say,
thing that most people don't even realize. We're no longer just competing with Massachusetts.
Right.
You've got Connecticut and New York.
Yep.
And we're not that far away, and
We're not. It's
Well,
weird.
you look at 2 hours and you're in New York City.
Yeah, you're right
I
about
was
that.
down at the casino one time, there was a teacher there, and I told her what I was making, she said, that's criminal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
I said, well, I'm making like 40 grand, she was making like 70.
yeah.
That's criminal, how can they pay you that?
PM number 5, we do pay, a waiver of health insurance benefits. He was talking about raising the amount
Right, I know.
to bring more people off. I don't
Can we
have a
change
problem with
the
that, but
numbers?
if you were to move it up to like 7,200, you would be leading in the state. I don't know.
Would increased participation or not really move the needle much for that?
It would only move, so I'll speak from experience, it moves the needle when it benefits. So I'll just say, I don't mind, I'm on video or whatever. I don't take our health insurance. It saves us $24,000. If I get a $7,000 benefit, whatever you're discussing, that would only work if my wife gets less. So it only moves, so my wife, if she didn't take her health insurance at the school district she works at, she would only get $4,000. So then I would give us the benefit. But what we forget is that the benefit is huge.
Yeah.
Like I had a job offer one time where they offered me $10,000 not to take the health insurance.
Because it costs them 25.
Exactly, so they save 15, and it encourages you to not take it. So I don't know the answer to this, where the tipping point is.
Here's the problem. We have, now I'm speaking from experience here, we have already negotiated 2 contracts with the set payback.
Right,
That's
we probably
part
shouldn't
of the
change it.
contract.
Yeah.
If we were to come in and change the non-union contract, we would have people over our neck. Oh, I don't even wanna think about it. And now that we're negotiating with the Teamsters, I don't even wanna think about it.
We're in the middle of negotiations.
I think that this policy, the real gist, and I do apologize, we've had a very serious student situation happen in the last hour and a half, so I don't normally walk out of these meetings, and I will need to talk to you about it. So the gist of this is that the real problem was this. I went to hire someone this summer. You're on that staff policy, right, that went to ER?
I didn't see it now.
Oh, which policy you're on right now? I just wanna make sure I got the
No,
right.
these are questions Jamie has.
Oh, okay, and that was about I'm sorry, I'm looking at the
GDB,
GDB, thank you very
that's
much.
what we're looking at. It's the draft we looked at in personnel.
Yes, that's what I thought. So GDB, the gist of it is that I had a situation where I had a staff member that we needed to hire because we really only had one really good candidate. And so when I went to hire them, their response was no. They would lose weeks of vacation time. And because of the policy, I would be stuck. So I frankly, I did it. It was a critical position. Knowing that I'd have to come to you for forgiveness, there was no time. It was August, it was very quick. And so what we were asking was that the number of vacation days just get adjusted. But once everyone started reading the policy, they started digging into it.
Given the unemployment level in New Hampshire, we really can't afford to negotiate with zero unemployment.
Flexibility, yeah.
I mean, we don't have a good bargaining position in this environment, really.
We don't.
0.
Well, it's not only that, but the people that we're talking about are highly skilled and trained people. I'm not talking
Right.
about custodial staff and things. But if you look at our staff, I mean, paraprofessional now, it's not like it was 10 years
Most of
ago
them are
where you could get
teachers,
someone in
certified
to
teachers.
help Johnny read. They've got to now have degrees and they've got to go continuing ed, so if you're gonna demand more, you've got to give more.
Right.
And you've got to be
So
right.
So the health benefits increase, the waiver, I'm assuming most people understand the policy, there aren't people that just never got around to looking.
Well,
at
you
what
have
it
to
is.
show that you have coverage. So, like, I took the waiver, but I had to show that I had it somewhere else, so I had to bring in, right?
Okay.
And, to tell you, well, anyway, that's another story, but, I mean, that's a deal for the school district,
Right.
right?
I personally don't see where there's a problem, but we have to go back through the negotiation process first.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think the key to this is that it's a weird group because they don't have a collective bargaining agreement, but the policy binds them as if it is a collective bargaining.
Yep.
It's bizarre. And in some ways, I haven't asked a lawyer, but I think we do have a collective bargaining agreement. Because the policy is so specific,
That's why.
I'm concerned that there might be some liability with the specificity of this policy.
Oh, absolutely, because you're violating the policy if you don't do what the policy says.
Exactly, so I think that the key, what I need to move forward was for the board to adopt the area on page, so as superintendent, I didn't have any problem with this policy except for number 7. Number 7 has, I was asking that if somebody's with us for 90 days, they would get 2 weeks of vacation. If they're here for 5 years, they get 3 weeks. And then frankly, after that, wherever you wanna put 4 weeks is fine with me. Right? It's
How
the
many
first-
years?
So the changes, the way it read originally was that there was, after, you couldn't get vacation time until after like a year.
That's right.
And I'm saying, no, after you're here 90 days, you qualify for 2 weeks. Because if we don't do that, I can't get people. See, that was the problem, was that
So I come to work for you, I work 90 days, take 2 weeks vacation, give my notice.
well, I have to approve it. I'm not saying that.
No,
you're
you know
eligible-
I'm gonna quit.
You're eligible for it. Well, Pete, we gotta be
Most
careful.
places that I've ever heard of is a year.
That's fine, but then can we give them 1 week during the first year? Because if we don't give them something, they're working an entire year without a day
Well,
off.
what I've always seen, and this is what I just did 15 years ago, so it's gonna be a while, is that at 6 months, you're entitled to 1 week vacation.
It's fine.
Yeah, I
And
can
then
go with
after
that.
that, you went up to 2 weeks after the first year anniversary.
Mhm.
And
So-
then after
so-
that, you went through the normal cycle.
So I'm fine with that, but then we go back to, I need some kind of a mechanism as the superintendent, language to give me the flexibility in the event that I'm recruiting a candidate for a unique position where they would be losing significant, so the fact of the matter is I can't really tell you the details because the person can't
Okay,
be identified in
do
public.
we
meeting.
have, I'm gonna call it a condition of employment. In other words, for example, my daughter went for a job, and they offered her the job, she said, oh, by the way, I'm going on vacation, you know, in 2 weeks, I've already booked it to Hawaii. On condition of employment, they gave her those 2 weeks, that was part of her
I could
condition.
do that.
Do we have anything like that?
Well, we didn't, that didn't come up in this situation, so I don't know, because it would only apply to this group. But if you're asking me as superintendent, if somebody, hey, Pete, I wanna hire you to be this person in the tech department,
Right,
okay? And you say, well, I'd like to take the job, the salary's fine, but I've got a trip to New Mexico planned in 3 weeks.
right,
My response would be, no problem, we'll work that out.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But that isn't in this policy either. I'm just doing what the right thing to do is, and what I'm saying is that this person that I just hired was fine with the wage, but they have a young family, and they didn't specify a week for vacation. But my feeling was, I'm not gonna make it so that you can't take a trip with your kids this year for an entire year and not take the job.
I'm looking, I guess what I'm saying is,
I know where you're
I'm
going,
looking for some way to give you the authority
Yeah.
that in your negotiations, you can do that.
So the language that I've come up with in the past is literally that. The superintendent retains the authority to offer additional vacation time,
Period.
period. But the part that I added was, any additional vacation time offered during the initial negotiation, they stay at that rate until their years of service catch up to it. So you don't get like, hey, Tom, I need 2 weeks or I can't do this for X, Y, and Z, and then they get 4 weeks in a year. It doesn't work like that. When their rate of employment catches up, they stay at that level. They don't get more.
Yeah.
And that's just the part I wanted clear. If you would like me to draft language for that, I'm happy to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, and I have no problem with after 6 months, they've accrued 1 week, because they've already worked that 6 months. So if they get, I think it's 0.75, it's 0.75 times 12, somehow sound like, you know, so if you accrue 0.75 per month, if they've got 6 months in, they have accrued. That's why you work a year before you get it, because you actually accrued that time.
Right, so we're talking about vacation accruals, which isn't a part of this policy, but I'm fine with saying that 0 to 6 months is nothing. 6 months to 1 year is 1 week.
1 week,
1
sure.
year is 2 weeks.
Right, you've got 1
And
year
then-
under
and
your
then
belt,
go
you
up
got 2
through,
weeks vacation.
But the question that I had for you guys, and the reason why this policy was brought up in the first place was, I was wondering, originally, it was a really long time before you got anything.
Yep.
And I didn't like that, but then the other part of it was, because, you know, a lot of times we're trying to attract young people with families, so we needed some flexibility, but then the second part is, at what point, so at this point it says 9 years, 3 weeks and 4 days, 10 years, 4 weeks is the proposal. Originally it was something like 15 years, you'd get 4 weeks. I mean, that's a long time.
That's what it is in most places.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
I'm
that's
fine with
right.
that. My real problem was the first 5 years.
Yeah.
So I just wanted you to hear that the rub wasn't later on, but it just got discussed. So what do you guys wanna do? That's my question.
I think you should draft something and bring it to us.
All right, so we'll have one more meeting on this, Pam, and then I'll work on that.
That shouldn't be a problem.
But I love the idea of 6 weeks in a year. That's a really good idea.
6 weeks in a year.
I'm 6 months.
Oh,
6
okay.
months, you get 1 week.
Yeah,
I'm
come
sorry.
work for us for a year, we'll give you 6 months.
Yeah, no, I hadn't
Yeah, I
thought
like
of 6
that.
months in 1 week. I think that's a really good.
When are we
but
gonna go to
giving
the
me-
5 hours a day?
Yeah, giving me some room though. Right, yeah, 5 hours a day. Yeah, very
3
good.
days a week though.
3 days a week.
I like that one.
What, you work?
I used
2
to
days
work
a
4
week?
days a week.
Huh?
I'm just
I
giving
give
you
us to work 4 and 2.
All right, great. So Pam, I'll work that language up and send it to you for review, okay?
Okay?
Thank you. Yeah. This is just important that it just came up and I didn't want to leave it hanging.
See, things have changed. For instance, many fire departments, Exeter has this, I know my brothers had this,
Mhm.
right? They work 12-hour days. They work 4 12-hour shifts.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, they work 24-hour shifts. So they work 24 hours, off a day, 24 hours, then they're off 3 or 4 days, I think it is, and they work, it's the same, it's still 48 hours a week. But to a businessman, you know, wait a minute, you're working 2 days,
Yeah,
well, 24 hours a day.
for police and fire, there's a special.
Well, not so much police, but
Well, no,
fire.
but in the federal law, there's an actual carve out for police and fire for that particular
Yes, right.
schedule.
But my family came from fire service, and let me tell you, we used to argue all the time. You guys sleep when you get paid for it, you know? You know,
Good.
you didn't see me doing that at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was working.
Matt, so that position that you asked about is, was created by the board last year.
Okay,
It's not ours, it's new.
he may ask you that question in a
Now, we've
meeting.
done something wrong, but we're not yelling.
Tell him
at
to
each
call
other.
me tomorrow,
Okay,
and I will tell him, I'll explain it to him.
Pam, you're still in an open meeting.
For a minute.
Oh, yeah, you're still in.
I need to talk to you too.
Oh,
To
gee.
adjourn.
So do, yeah.
Yep,